Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny Massive Breakdowns show. My name is Impetus, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Court and Saint Kabr. We have another weapons breakdown for you today, but before we get to those weapons, let's thank some special people. Saint?
Yep, we want to shout out a few people, some patrons, some sponsors, some new patrons. First, thanks to the Oscar Mike, reached out to Court and said, keep up the excellent work on D&B PvE. You guys are great, listen, and easily put out one of the best Destiny podcasts in the community. Thank you for all the work. And thank you, Oscar Mike, for the kind words. We also had Hey It's Gibbon 48 join us in the ranks of the patrons this week. Thank you for the support, Gibbon. Also known as Dredge and Gibbon, we have played many a Gambit match. One of the only ways to make it as enjoyable as it could be is playing with you, my man. So thanks for joining. Also want to give a shout out to the sponsors that make Massive Breakdowns as a podcast network a reality week after week. A Modern Viking, ASCII and Monk, Bryce Aroni, Deacon, I'm K Rose, Moonlight, Shazzle, and This Moment. As a reminder, you can send us all kinds of feedback directly to our socials in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord server. We've got a podcast discussion channel. Positive, critical, and constructive feedback always helps with the trajectory of the show and how we present all kinds of builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox. We also want to extend a special thanks to everybody that supports PvE each week, downloading, listening to the show wherever you may find it, and discussing it with us and supporting us via Patreon. If you would like to support the show, you can visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You get access to the Patrons Lounge, a members-only channel in the Discord, some behind-the-scenes info and input on the show, as well as access to our legendary annual merch drop. Also, check out Destiny Massive Breakdowns, dives into the nitty-gritty of PvP with Illphysics and Lego LaFlash, and Beneath Twin Suns, the Star Wars podcast that explains it all with Mercules and Kit. Court, what are we talking about this week on PvE?
Hello, lads. It'd be a bit of a short episode this week, hopefully. So we're talking about the Season 21 seasonal weapons. That's the Taken ones. And we have some highlights for the Reckoning weapons. We're not doing a full breakdown of those this season, but we do have some kind of quick highlights for those. But we'll do a full breakdown for the Taken weapons this week. Last week in Destiny, I will kick us off here. I did do a Tier 7 deep dive. That's the one where you do the pressure trial per floor. And then you do the end boss, so you complete every single floor with the pressure trial active as well. Funnily enough, I did that with a match-made team, so we just kind of started it, the three of us. We all knew where Toland was, and we just got cracking, really. It was a nice little kind of Destiny experience there. Lots of fun. I've been really enjoying the deep dive content. We spoke about it last week. We'll kind of do a bit of a more fuller breakdown at the end of the season when we're talking about Season 21. Really enjoying this type of content, and I hope to see more in the future. Impetus, what are you up to, or what were you up to?
Well, I didn't do a whole lot of Destiny this past week. I logged in on Tuesday, as I normally do, kind of checking out some vendors and stuff, and I was just having a bunch of connectivity issues, so that unfortunately did kill my desire to log in kind of day after Tuesday. So truthfully, I barely touched the game. I'm hoping to do the weekly story and then a Tier 7 deep dive either today or tomorrow. Not a lot. I've been playing some other games, kind of just been away from my keyboard. Weather's been really nice where I live, so I've been outside hanging out with some coworkers and stuff, just kind of engaging in other activities. But don't worry, I'm still coming back to Destiny. It's just been taking a week off, if you will. How about you, Saint?
I haven't. I've played a little bit of deep dive, and I would definitely agree that it is kind of one of our better seasonal activities, especially as like the difficulty options kind of keep jumping up, and then there's more loot to gain, and all that stuff is cool. But yeah, I haven't been grinding a ton this season. I kind of enjoying just messing around with like the artifact builds and stuff like that, kind of just going through and making builds for all these different exotics that got tuned up. We talked a little bit about last week. I've been trying to use Second Chance. I really want Second Chance to be good. I'm really trying to build a build around that. I don't think it's bad. I think the most recent buff has put it into what I would call a usable state. I don't know if it's going to be a like GM staple by any means, but it's viable, which I will definitely take considering where that exotic first launched, and the oh my gosh, the point contact build. It's just a lot of fun. Been using that, did some, Last Wish. I couldn't grind a ton the first boot that came around, so just did a few normal runs. Well, that is still glitched, getting double progress, kind of rounding out some patterns there. Still enjoying the seasonal story. We have like the little Veil story beats each week. We have the actual like Season of the Deep Asa story beats each week. There's like some stuff in the Rooted Nightmares that hinted at the fact that these storylines may be connected to each other now that they're talking about Asa and her background and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that as the season goes on, those two storylines will start to intertwine or come together in one. We'll see how that all pans out. But I've been playing a lot of 40k Bolt Gun, which is if you haven't seen that game, it's kind of like a retro, just like rampaging shooter from back in the day. That's been a lot of fun. Would definitely check that out. And then also in the 40k world, they just announced Space Marine 2, which is looking really good. But we've already talked about it, and will remain a Destiny podcast no matter what. This is not Impetus. What did you call it?
PFE, Podcast for the Emperor.
Yeah, no, PFE here. Okay, strictly Massive Breakdowns, PvE. We are still Destiny mains, but, it's nice to try out some other games every now and then and just see what's going on there.
So we're not going to do an episode on DMZ. Well, I'm pretty disappointed.
Okay. Hey, Marathon's coming. Okay, you never know. Okay?
Oh, boy, yeah.
Let's take it back to Destiny, though. All right, let's talk about these taken-ified weapons. Court, you want to jump in with our origin trait here?
Mm-hmm. Just before we do that, just say where you get these. So you acquire them from the Deep Dive, Salvage, and the Deep Engram, focusing at the sonar station in the helm. And these, of course, are craftable. So it's kind of why we're putting more focus on this set of 6 than the Reckoning set, mainly because you can just go and craft these whenever you want. But yeah, the origin trait, we did talk about this last week as well, but just a kind of reminder, it's Unsated Hunger. If your grenade, melee, and ability, that's your class ability, Barricade, Rift, or Hunter Dodge, are not fully charged, it grants you stability, handling, and reload speed. Or for the case of swords, it's plus 50 charge rate and plus 40 guard endurance. The data collection is still work in progress. I know there's still folks kind of trying to get the numbers for these. I think stability is around about 20, 25, so it is quite a significant kind of. It's significant in the sense that you're getting a lot of bonuses all at once, stability, handling, and reload speed, when you've not got any of these abilities fully charged. First weapon here, Rapacious Apatite. It's actually the one that I was most interested in getting, because, we've few and far between with stasis submachine guns. The only other one here is Blood Feud from Season of the Plunder. And from the offset, I'm going to be pretty honest here. I had kind of fair enough, I was looking out for this weapon, but when I eventually got it and I was crafting it and getting all the perks together, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And again, I think it's something to do with the actual frame. Aggressive frame SMGs, I just don't have a lot of kind of fun with. So Rapacious Apatite here is a stasis aggressive frame submachine gun that's 750 RPM. The frame bonus is just high damage and high recoil. So we're going to be comparing this with Blood Feud, which is the previous stasis aggressive frame, and we've got also the Immortal, which is the most recent Strand aggressive SMG. So the range here is 43. Stability, which I had to double check this because I was like, is that 6? And that is nuts considering Immortal has 25. So there's this massive gap. The range 43 is the highest of the 3 there. Handling is 53, which puts it in the middle. Immortal funnily enough, has 58. It's the highest here. And reload speed is 22. Again, that's middling. Mortal has 30. So stability stat will be the big deal breaker here for folks here. If you're after other stats, if you're interested in other stats, but if you're wanting stability, I know for us, Impetus and I we're focused kind of on the PC side, so stability not necessarily something that we build into, but for console players, or if you're on a controller, I think this is where you really want to focus on bumping up that stability. For the highlighted barrels in the magazines, looking at fluted, which is your typical +5 stability and +15 handling. Polygonal, which is your +10 stability, and small bore, which just gives that +7 to stability and range, which is probably what I would be aiming towards, just get that +7 range and stability. If you're wanting range, I know I'm more focused on getting range on a lot of weapons. You could go hammer forged, or you could go full bore, but you do get that -6 to stability and -5 to handling, so it brings you down to 0 stability. Crazy to say that with a SMG. For the magazine, looking at flared magwell, just give you that +15 reload speed, just really bump up that reload, and +5 stability. We've got armor piercing, if that's more your thing, and ricochet rounds as well, which gives you that +5 range and +10 stability, and of course the rounds do ricochet off the hard surfaces as well. For me, before I pass around the table here, columns 3 and 4. So the ones that I was kind of focusing on, I was kind of looking at Perp Motion and Perp Motion or Envious Assassin, combined with One for All, maybe Headstone. Target lock's not really something I'm all that interested in when it comes to PvE. But yeah, Frenzy's there as well. Frenzy is your really bog standard, it just does a lot of things and it works in the background. So that 15% increased damage, you get the 100 handling and the 100 reload speed, which is really great to have, especially for an aggressive SMG if you're swapping around a lot. But yeah, so my choice would probably be Perp Motion and either Frenzy, or if I want to go a stasis build, Headstone. But I've been using this a fair amount since I managed to get it crafted a few weeks back, or 2 weeks now at this point. It just doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel as snappy as other frames, which is sad. Saint, what perks are you going for this? Have you tried around with Rapacious Apatite?
Yeah, because despite its low base stats, in some ways it's still better than Blood Feud, which is astonishing, considering its ability starts out so low. But I am playing on controller usually, so I'm probably gonna go maybe like Chambered Compensator is going to give my stability a +10 and put my recoil direction up to 100, which is really nice. And I am going to need the stability help, all the stability help I can get. And then maybe ricochet rounds, as you mentioned. But in the other, in the third column, I think is the only one where I would differ, where I was looking for, how do I get more stability constantly? And, you have 2 routes that you can go. But if I'm going to have an ad clear weapon, I like, the perpetual motion, right? Some nice stat boosts. You got +20 stability handling and reload, right? Which is great. But if I got frenzy in my last column, keeping my handling and reload up to 100, which is a massive bump considering, reload is starting so low down in like the 20s. I may go Encore, because Encore gives pretty good benefits. It's giving 5 range, 8 stability, and 1.25% anti-accuracy cone size, or smaller accuracy cone size, and that goes up to 4 stacks, which Encore is not a weapon that I've used like a ton in PvE, but I do like the idea, that I have Frenzy, right, that is bumping up my handling, and reload speed, and then I got Encore getting cranked up to help out with the range and stability. So you can actually have a pretty good weapon, because Yeah, we just got real spoiled on the aggressive frame SMGs. Impetus, how about you, Ben?
For the longest time, having a stasis SMG with headstone has kind of been a blank spot in my vault. There are 4 stasis SMGs. We got Forensic Nightmare all the way back on Witch Queen. Didn't really like that at all. It did have headstone and like perpetual motion, which is a fine roll, but it was a precision frame, and I don't like precision frames. Bloodfeed was the next one. I ended up going for more melee focused perks just because of the origin trait on the plunder weapons. And then we had prolonged engagement after that. That was our most recent one before Rapacious. And I've been chasing a prolonged engagement with headstone because I really like Viced Stinger. I like that archetype of SMG. And it's funny, shortly after I crafted Rapacious, I was doing a few, it was either Nightfalls or Strikes, and I got a prolonged with Feeding Frenzy headstone, and that has been just hard. It's hard for Rapacious to compete with that. I was trying out both of them, and I ended up just deleting my crafted Rapacious that I was trying to level up because I like prolonged better. But yeah, if I had to pick something, I'm normally the type of person when it comes to aggressives to put full bore on them because, again, on mouse and keyboard, I don't worry about stability. That takes me down to 0. I mean, again, I can play around because it's craftable. I could throw Ricochet on there if I really wanted to, or something else to help out. Again, we've got different perks that give me stability in columns 3 and 4, but yeah, I'd probably craft 4 times in headstone just because I could proc 4 times pretty consistently. I'm already aiming for the head for headstone, but I just don't feel the need to really use this a whole lot. I know that this does have more range than my prolonged engagement, but prolonged feels better. And in this case, I like to feel a little bit more than 1.5 meters of range, I think. Yeah, it's like 19 versus 16 meters ADS. So not worth ditching prolonged for this, especially when prolonged comes with Vice Stinger, which I do actually proc and is a good origin trait, unlike Unsated Hunger, which I don't frankly ever want to proc in PvE. I would be in a really bad spot if I had no abilities fully charged, and I definitely wouldn't be swapping to my primary weapon to take advantage of that if I found myself in that situation. So,
do you think Unsated Hunger, like, maybe, what if it was just like 2, only 1 ability remaining or something like that? I mean, like a little more
I
draw,
imagine
right?
it's strict probably for PvP more than PvE, right?
Yeah.
I had wondered, like, could we have stacking, like a reverse surplus situation where you get a stat bump with fewer abilities fully charged? But again, they'd probably have to bring those values way, 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 way down to a point maybe where it wouldn't matter a whole lot, because origin traits are meant to be like half a perk. So yeah, I don't know. Just, it's not doing anything for me, which is fine. Not every origin trait has to. It doesn't really detract from the quality of the gun. I would say I'd be a lot more interested in this SMG if it had collective action. Like, that to me is the biggest omission, because we don't have a stasis SMG with collective action, and stasis shards are very easy to proc on a stasis subclass. So that would be a really nice option there. I would definitely craft a stasis one. We still don't have a demo headstone SMG. I mean, that's what I would really, really love. But again, that's a topic of conversation for another time here. If you are in need of a stasis SMG, you got Rapacious there. If you haven't gotten a good prolonged engagement, Blood Feud, I don't know if has that even been sold this season. I think that's up to just Zur and Banshee at this point for random rolls. So good luck is all I can say. And then Forensic Nightmare, if you do own the Witch Queen expansion, you could go and craft one of those just by doing the campaign and various missions in the Throne World. So yeah, not a whole lot of great options here. You guys got anything else to add?
I couldn't get past the mandibles on Blood Feud. I like a lot of the
ADS
weapons.
experience is an experience.
It
for sure.
really is. It's immersive. Okay. A lot of those Plunder weapons, like, it is a cool design, right? And like I love that they're always trying to like innovate with their scope designs and stuff like that. But yeah, I just couldn't do it, man. Just could not get about past like the 8th level of crafting, and I just put that thing in the vault. So I've actually been using this a little bit because of that exact reason, the mandibles, and I never got. I got a couple like prolonged engagements, but nothing really great. So that's it's found somewhat of a place now that Stasis Titan is we get some elemental perks, or it's kind of, or mods that's back on the table a little bit. I've been messing around with this, but yeah, I agree on the collective action part. That feels like a loss.
Well, I'll take our next weapon here. This is our second primary, also in the same slot here as Rapacious Apatite, but a different element, and that is different times. That is our Strand rapid fire pulse rifle firing at 540 rounds per minute. Frame bonus here is deeper ammo reserves and a slightly faster reload on an empty mag. That's a 0.8 times scalar, which is about 20% faster reload once you have 0 bullets in your magazine and you go to reload. We do have, so this is our first Strand pulse rifle. We do have a few kinetic rapid fire pulse rifles that we'll treat as our archetype peers for a comparison's sake here. We'll be using last season's Autumn Wind, dropping from the Crucible, and then Season of the Risen's Peace of Mind. That is a craftable pulse rifle from last year, though. It is not a pretty picture, unfortunately, for different times here. Sitting at a range of 28, that is the lowest of our three here. Autumn Wind has 32, stability of 39, also the lowest. Autumn Wind has 47, and then a handling of 18, which is very, very low. Peace of Mind here has the highest at 27. Reload speed 28, again the lowest. Autumn Wind has 34. Poor stats here for sure, but there is a little bit of flexibility in the perks here, especially columns 3 and 4. But we'll start with our barrels and mag here. Recoil direction is 52. Again, if that is going to be a problem for you, definitely recommend Arrowhead Break here. That gets you up to 82 and also helps out with your handling, bringing that up by 10 to 28. Otherwise, if a base of 52 recoil direction is fine for you, there's still fluted again to help out with your handling. You could also go small bore if you don't care about 18 handling. That's totally fine. That'll help boost your stability and range by a little bit. On the barrel side here, flared magwell again to help out a little bit with the handling if you're still having issues with that. And then I'd probably go armor piercing or ricochet rounds. For armor piercing, of course, for going up against shields, and the overpenetration ricochet for the bounce effect, which can be quite nice sometimes. Once you get to column 3, though, things get a little bit better here. You got stats for all. That's going to be really nice, especially that 35 handling after you damage 3 separate enemies. We've also got heating up outlaw. I think would be really, it's a basic option, but still quite nice. Subsistence on primaries is not going to help you a whole lot in the end game, especially once enemies get to be at your power level or higher. In low tier content, totally fine. You'll pretty much never have to reload. So make of that what you will. I think probably by now we should all be a little bit familiar with how subsistence fares on primary weapons. Moving over to column 4, this is where things really, really open up. You've got Adrenaline Junkie, Collective Action, Golden Tricorn, and Hatchling. I'll start with Hatchling here. Remember, you will need to land precision final blows on different times for this perk to proc. I, for the most part, don't have too much trouble with firing headshots on rapid fire frames. I do know, though, in higher tier content, that can be a bit of a challenge when you start taking a little bit more flinch from enemies. So just be aware of that it will require precision final blows. Golden Tricorn, though, that is going to certainly get a pulse rifle up. Once you get ×2, that you're going to be dealing quite a good bit of damage. Should be shredding enemies with ease here. Collective Action, so I did talk about this last episode. This is right now our only primary weapon in the kinetic slot to roll Collective Action. So that's what I'm looking for, because I'm going to probably put this weapon into my Arc Warlock build where I use Cold Heart in my energy slot to generate a bunch of Ionic Traces. I also wear the Fallen Sunstar helmet exotic, so I get a lot of benefit out of using but also creating Ionic Traces, and to have a damage perk proc whenever I pick up an Ionic Trace is going to be really nice for getting this primary weapon to feel even stronger. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. As for column 3, it'll probably be stats for all. Do the stats for all, Collective Action, wombo combo there. So yeah, that's what I'll be looking for. But again, this is the only primary with collective action in our kinetic slot. There will be more in the coming seasons, so whether or not this will stick around after that point, we'll find out. But for right now, that's kind of its claim to fame at the time. Court, what are you looking at for different times? What's sticking out to you?
So this is another one that I did manage to craft pretty early on, and I've went for stats for all, and I've been playing around with collective action, but I did ultimately swap to Golden Tricorn because as a hunter, I can really exploit Golden Tricorn with the grapple melee. Maybe not so much in endgame content. I don't see myself grapple meleeing a lot of things in that sort of higher end content, so I'd maybe swap back to collective action or even go Adrenaline Junkie. But for the time being, Golden Tricorn is my go-to. 15%, and then that 50% after a grapple kill. I'm just looking at the stats here. So with stats for all, it goes up to range 43, stability 49, handling 63, and reload speed 63. And that brings your reload time down to 1.27 seconds, which is, you don't need subsistence in any sort of content. If you want to go down that kind of almost infinite amount of ammo, sure, for a primary, but ultimately you're getting a fast enough reload with stats for all procced. And if you want to go down the heating up route, that does bring you up to, so two times heating up brings you up to 69 stability and 100 recoil direction, 1.82 seconds reload time, so not as fast as stats for all, but so the reload time is also including the frame, the 20% faster if that's triggered, so you're reloading from empty. But yeah, so for me, stats for all and Golden Tricorn. Saint, what are you looking for, perk wise for this?
Yeah, I like Outlaw and Hatchling, or like Outlaw and Golden Tricorn are fine for like your lower middling content. But I've really been gravitating towards stats for all and collective action, just because the way that like Strand plays, is like my Titan that I'm playing, I am generating a lot of tangles, but I'm not using my Strand ability super offensively, just because I play a super, woven male focused class. So collective action and stats for all are both, really solid benefits. 20% right for collective action that I can activate even when I can't get close enough to grapple melee, right? Or when my Strand melees and my Titan little blades aren't quite enough to bring down an enemy. Being able to trigger collective action so easily is really nice, even though Golden Tricorn definitely has that like higher skill ceiling. Plus since all our primaries got updated, rapid fire pulse rifles are, they're not bad. They're it's so much better of a spot than they used to be, kind of hanging out around, autos and some of the scout rifle archetypes. They're a little slower firing. So, not a bad archetype. Definitely enjoying collective action. Really solid trait. I know we mentioned that last week. We were talking about our new traits, but the way that they made that work with the tangles and all the other like little elemental pickups is solid.
I should also point out collective action does work for other elemental pickups that you're not. Mm-hmm. So the subclass you're not on. So if you're picking up fire sprites with a Strand weapon, it works for you. It's not like Golden Tricorn where you're restricted to the subclass of Strand. Whereas collective action, if your teammates are making ionic traces and fire sprites and stasis shards, this will still work. It'll still give you the increase up to 12 seconds.
Yeah, Impetus, I think you were mentioning you using a little ball and Sunstar, right? And still being able to proc this thing all the time. All right, any other thoughts on our first Strand pulse rifle, different times?
It's a good one.
Yeah, good first entry.
All right, let's move on to targeted redaction. This is a void aggressive frame hand cannon, 120 RPM. Frame bonus, just like aggressive SMG, high damage, high recoil, and Unfortunately, this weapon has to compete with Igneous Hammer in its same slot, which is just an absolute stat monster. After that, we also have Bottom Dollar, which is a very direct competitor, Igneous being Solar, Bottom Dollar being Void, Gambit playlist Hand Cannon from a few seasons back. So it's not looking great, Range is at 56, which is not bad, but Igneous has 65, and Bottom Dollar is going to be in the middle there. Stability's at 23, again lowest, with Igneous at 35. Handling is at 26, with Igneous up top at 37. Reload speed is 25, which is shared with Bottom Dollar, and again, Igneous at 35. Not a stellar stat package out of the gate. There are some things that we can do to help this out, but it's just so hard to compete with a weapon like Igneous Hammer that's just, just absolutely stacked up, feels good, looks good, and has the stats to match. But let's talk about what can we do to, pump this thing up a little bit, get it close. Definitely looking at getting that handling up. The base handling at 26 is really low. We have some other ways we could help our reload and handling a little bit, but maybe a fluted to give that nice plus 15 to handling. That would bring you up to around 40. You could also go with the small bore, pumping even the range stability up each by 7, which would be about 63 and 30, which are fine options. Nothing wrong there. They're definitely helping a little bit. If we put on attack and fluted together there, you're looking at about 35 reload, around 33 stability. So, we're getting there. Again, with Igneous at 35 stability, we're kind of getting towards what the base would be there. And things open up a little bit as we get into our main trait columns. We have some stat options. We have some damage options. Impetus, what have you been using this thing at all? What are you going for?
Unfortunately, I'm not going for anything. I did acquire, here's the thing. We mentioned Bottom Dollar. Bottom Dollar's been out for 2 years now. It came out during Season of the Chosen. Did get Origin trait, which isn't much better than Unsated Hunger, but I do at least proc, gun, and run a little bit. Bottom Dollar is just more flexible. It's got that larger perk pool. I scored an Outlaw Explosive Payload roll at Bottom Dollar, which also, that's an exact roll I could put on Targeted Redaction, but Bottom Dollar feels better. It's got better stats. So I'm going to stick with Bottom Dollar, to be perfectly honest. And if I didn't have that roll, then it would probably be Outlaw Explosive Payload. No, because Frenzy's on there, and Frenzy, once Frenzy's active, we got handling at 100, reload speed at 100. Yeah, it'd probably be Frenzy, actually, is what I would pick up in column 4, but then that takes out a lot of the interesting options in column 3 with a reload speed of 100, right? So, let's see. Yeah, it'd probably be Envious Assassin, as much as I hate Envious Assassin on primaries, because, it's a perk that's much better for special and power weapons, but with Envious active, I can get... Now, all right, Foundry is saying 20. We don't actually know. I don't know what that would look like in game if it could get the magazine all the way up to 20 shots. But that's the real problem, I guess, is that magazine at 8 is you're gonna burn through those bullets. So you really need you'd need something like Frenzy to really make. You're gonna be doing a lot of reloading, is what I'm trying to say. So you might as well get that reload speed up a bunch. But yeah, oh man, it's just 120 hand cannon's not a good spot, Court, is there anything that you're looking at on here? Anything that you want?
It's not even 120s that are in a rough spot. It's all hand cannons. Right. Unless it's an exotic hand cannon, or if it's a certain Vault of Glass hand cannon. I've just not used hand cannons for years at this point, unless it's an exotic. Exotics have that kind of their own little world, so you can't really compare this to this. But no, I can't recommend any perks here because there's nothing that's jumping out. There's nothing that's making me interested. Maybe we could revisit this sometime in the far future whenever hand cannons get a little bit of a buff in PvE, because they do still need it. I think everything else has settled down quite nicely. Hand cannons are still in this rough spot. That's my opinion anyway. That they just don't feel right. They don't need to touch exotic hand cannons. It's just legendaries that are like these just need a little bit of help here. And yeah.
And what would you touch? Like we say hand cannons need a buff. What to use the part that like I need a change here?
I think we've seen explosive payload on so many other hand cannons. So I'm not really inclined to highlight that. So maybe Frenzy just to help it out, because it's, Frenzy's just such a jack of all trades perk here, and it just does its job. It just gets on with it. As long as you're being aggressive with it, you'll get the benefits of Frenzy. But collective action here, again, it's just another thing if you're playing into the whole subclass pickups or destroying your strand stuff. Yeah, great perk there, but as things stand currently, I can't really recommend anything, unfortunately.
I mean, I think what I would like to see, or like in my mind, what would be a good buff for hand cannons is like, I mean, if you're looking at our just like straight up base DPS, they're very dependent on reload speed, and they're losing to most other weapons like pretty badly. So I think maybe like a 5 to 10% base damage just across the board, and then a crit multiplier increase, because the satisfaction from using a hand cannon comes from like popping heads, right? For lack of a better term, right? I mean, you hit the headshot, you want to deal big chunk damage, you want, I mean, when you're landing repetitive crits on a Cabal, on Neomuna, and nothing is happening, it's just such a bad feeling, right? We won't drag this on a ton. I kind of put this through the mud in the last episode, but the Veil quest, the seasonal kind of quest hand cannon, right? Which is similar to like a ritual weapon, right? It's like the long arm type of a deal. But grabbing this weapon and trying to go use it on Neomuna is just not a good feeling, right? And it is very unsatisfying to use, and that like really put that on display. But I think that is just like the case in point of, if hand cannons are going to be viable, they need a damage buff and maybe even like a crit multiplier buff, I think would be good. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
It's the reload speed for me. Either give them more bullets and keep the reload speed as is, so that at least once I get through the reload, I have a lot of bullets, or keep the magazine where it is, nice and small, but I get faster reloads at base, because they have great range and they hit hard for the most part. Like outside of 180s, 140s and 120s, you've got that range. Like that natural range is so helpful, and they deal good chunk damage. But once I'm out of bullets, I gotta take myself out of the fight, and that's just not acceptable for a primary weapon. Like, we can't have that.
Yeah. All right. I think we have dragged hand cannons through the mud for long enough here. Let's jump into our next weapon. Court, what's going on with the sniper rifle over here?
Yeah, this is a distant pull. It's the Stasis Rapid Fire sniper rifle. It's 140. Remember, rapid fire snipers did get that ammo capacity buff last season, and they got, including all other snipers, got a 10% damage buff. So yeah, rapid fire, again, this is the deeper ammo reserve, so you're even more ammo reserves on top of the buff. We know that does stack with each other, with previous seasons buff to ammo reserves. Faster reload when a mag is empty, and that's at 0.8 scalar, 20% faster. So it's up against a raid sniper, Precipice Revenge, which doesn't have a origin trait, and it is up against Supremacy, which is also another raid sniper, so which does have a origin trait. So its range is 30, which is the lowest. Precipice has 34, stability 35, Predith is 40, so again, it's lowest there. Handling at 65, still lower. Predith at 70, and the reload speed is 56. Again, that's lowest, and the Predith has 63. So yeah, it's up against some big competition. These big brutes of raid snipers. For the barrels, I think the only one that I've kind of looked at would be, we've got it in the script here, but fluted barrel, just to give you that +5 stability and +15 handling. Handling there just so if you want to really do some hot swap action. And then you've got tac mag as well, which gives you that slight increase to the magazine. You do get that +10 reload speed and +5 stability. Same mag benefits as appended and extended with the stat boosts, which is why we're not suggesting extended for at least for this sniper anyway. For column 3 and 4, overflow is here. We haven't seen overflow in a lot of kind of recent weapons. It's maybe 1 out of 20 weapons that we've seen overflow. Overflow is kind of a rare perk to see, but for a sniper rifle, just to really stack up the ammo in your magazine, it's there. If you want to go triple tap, that's your bog standard. If you can hit those crits, you'll get the ammo back. And for column 4, triple tap plus focus fury. Again, it's all down to if you can hit those crits. And collective action is also here as well. Headstone, bit of a trap perk. We're not really using a sniper rifle for crit to spawn a crystal. You can do that with other weapons, primarily primary weapons. Explosive payloads here as well if you want that. Discord is here as well. I think could potentially be an interesting weapon. It does fall in the 4th column, so it's taking up your quote damage perk here. But just as a reminder of what Discord does here, is final blows with another weapon grants this weapon increased speed for aiming down sights, accuracy, airborne effectiveness for the short time. Additionally, when Discord is active, this is the kind of thing I wanted to highlight, is the final blows refund ammo. So weapon kills, when Discord is active, refills, well, this isn't a prime weapon, but it will refund 1 ammo for special weapons. Bit of a niche case here, but if you can get that to work with overflow, you can just have a lot of ammo at your disposal. But again, this takes up your 4th column slot. Just want to highlight that. The other stats for Discord is it's for the following 7 seconds upon readying this weapon. You get it's around about 25% increase duration multiplier to your ADS animation, so it's faster, I should say, and 25% decreased accuracy cone size and AE as well. Again, that's more PvP oriented, but it was the special ammo kind of regeneration that I wanted to highlight here. So if you're doing a lot of hot swapping, again, that's why we're kind of going down the route of handling perks. You could make Discord work, but this is just another classic combination if you want to go down triple tap and focus fury. Impetus, what perks are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, the Discord thing's a good thing to point out, because this also does roll Ambitious Assassin in column 3. So if you procced Discord and were getting kills during those 7 seconds, getting the 1 bullet back, and assuming it was all you were landing all headshots, you would be racking up Ambitious Assassin procs, so that when Discord does run out, you can reload and get an potentially overfilled magazine. So yeah, I mean, you'd be using this probably for minor/major killing at that point if you wanted to get the easy 1-shot kill, but it's there. Definitely something to consider. I'm looking at overflow. Enhanced overflow is still one of the best ascendant alloy spending options that we have when it comes to those enhanced perks. And I have the Ikelos sniper rifle with enhanced overflow and focused fury. I haven't used it a whole bunch. Back when I crafted rapid fire sniper rifles weren't in the state they are now, but that's probably what I will put on a distant pull. Yeah, that's really all I have. I mean, it's stats aren't as great as the raid snipers, but that's kind of understandable. It's not as big of a gap as some of our primary weapons like targeted redaction, so that's fine. Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm interested in. If we ever do get a sniper rifle meta, or if there's one encounter coming up in a raid or a dungeon where snipers make sense, this would be a great option to have in the kinetic slot, right, mind you. So, yeah. How about you, Saint? Anything here that's catching your eye for a distant pull?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that Enhanced Overflow does pop off. When I compare it to Praetus, like Praetus kind of go-to role would be Rewind and Frenzy, right? I'm getting damage buff, I'm getting more bullets down the line. And when I look at Distant Pull, I definitely see that Overflow and collective action. Because it is stasis, I do have the ability to easily proc that. You throw down a grenade or a Hoarfrost Z barricade, what have you, and you can pretty easily be going into a damage phase with 20% increase and overflow magazine. Maybe not a damage phase, but some burst DPS. I still think snipers could use a little bit of a bump, but if you've been playing this game for a long time, you're not a long-term raider, this could be a good option for some kind of burst DPS there, and an easy way to guarantee that you have that 20% boost. With quite a few classes, like we were talking about, you don't have to be on stasis to proc collective action from a stasis weapon. So some decent options there. All right, I think that brings us to the shotgun. Any other remarks for our sniper? You guys good?
I'm good.
All right, let's talk about the shotty. It's called Until Its Return. It is a strand rapid fire 140 RPM frame. Deeper ammo reserves, faster reload when the mag is empty, just like the other rapid fires. That is a 0.8 scaler, aka 20% faster. It has some okay stats. Range is 28, kind of in the middle, with Ikelos being at 34. Stability is 32, tied with Ikelos for the highest. A handling of 36, which is pretty low. Ikelos is at 44. And a reload speed of 61, which is kind of, good for its archetype, right in the middle with its peers. So not bad for its archetype. Has some decently competitive stats. And it has, some ways to pump those up. Probably going with something like the small bore, a little range, a little stability, if you don't want this thing popping off all over the place. Not super interested in, full choke. If I'm not going for a, 1-2 punch build, that's kind of the only reason I really gravitate towards that. And then we got Tac Mag, an absolute classic, in the second column. But then things, again, kind of mix up here. When we get into columns 3 and 4, we have Overflow, Autoling Holster, and Threat Detector in column 3, and then Collective Action, Trench Barrel, Cascade Point, and Surrounded in column 4. There's also, Adrenaline Junkie and Vorpal, but not quite as drawn towards those. Court, if you are bringing this in to deal some damage, what are you looking for on your Until Its Return?
Well, if it's an ad kind of dense activities, which we've been getting a lot lately, I would probably go down the Surrounded route. I'm a big enhanced Surrounded stan, because it is one of the better enhanced perks. It is a 5% increase, much like everything else. For whenever you enhance a perk, it's generally speaking around about 5% increase to whatever it previously was. And 5% of 40% goes up to 47%, which is it's quite nutty when it comes to a damage perk, which just works in the background. Again, it all depends on if you're in a activity which has a lot of ads, you're in a lot of kind of trouble, you're at risk here, but you can sustain that successfully and efficiently, then Surrounded would be your answer. And then you could pair that with Threat Detector, which just works off the same kind of surrounded is 8 meters of 3 or more enemies, and threat detector is 15 meters. But it's the same kind of thing where if you've got ads near you, then you're going to get a lot of benefits here. So that's the 2 perks I would be looking at. I'm just looking at Foundry, just looking at the stats. So that brings it up to 77 stability. I don't have any other perks active, but 72 stability, 100 handling, 100 reload speed, and that brings it down to when you've got the rapid fire intrinsic frame active, it brings it down to 0.38 seconds per shell reloading. So very interesting combination. And yeah, like I said, Surrounded is my big kind of damage perk when it comes to shotguns. I don't use shotguns a lot, but fusion rifles are my kind of go-to when it comes to any type of content that requires a special weapon. But I suspect one of you might want to pick Overflow. Impetus, are you an Overflow stan here for the shotgun?
Absolutely,
Thought
dude.
so.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, One Small Step is the only other rapid fire with Trench Barrel. So I am looking to, and I never got a One Small Step with Trench Barrel, as that is notoriously hard to farm for. So yeah, I'm looking at Overflow and Trench Barrel. I know some people were talking about Cascade Point on a rapid fire. It is an experience to shoot a rapid fire, any weapon with a rapid fire weapon with Cascade Point active. Good luck controlling it. That's really all I'll say. But the other thing that's kind of keeping me from Cascade Point is that it's only 2.5 seconds. So if you are rocking, say, Overflow Cascade Point, you're probably going to get back down to the regular mag size when Cascade Point will run out after swapping to this weapon. So unfortunately, you will not be able to fire an overflowed rapid fire shotgun full mag with Cascade Point active, which is, that would be probably some of the best burst damage for a legendary special weapon in the game. So unfortunately, I think a better pairing would probably be autoloading holster with Cascade Point, but for me, it's going to be Overflow, Trench Barrel. A lot of bullets, just melee in between after 3 shots to keep Trench Barrel procced. Surrounded, yeah. Ooh, do I want Surrounded? No, I think I'll do Trench Barrel, because that way I can at least use this against major and mini boss enemies for good damage. Not that Surrounded can't be used for that. I mean, Surrounded definitely can be used in in-game activities. We've got a lot of raid encounters where you need to do kind of a little bit of ad clear and then also a little bit of mini boss stuff. I think of the third encounter of Val, for example. You've got those special enemies that spawn in that allow you to see the symbols. You're going to have a lot of minor enemies around them, so bursting them down quickly because you're on a timer makes a lot of sense. I think that's really where, that's an example where Surrounded really shines. Also, the first boss encounter, Prophecy. There's absolutely opportunities for Surrounded in game PvE, because I had somebody ask about that. Like, is that really that viable of a perk? It is. You just have to kind of wait for the right time, which is the case for some perks. But Surrounded, when it shines, it really shines. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go Trench Barrel though, because I'll probably use this for quick burst damage against mini bosses and bosses. How about you, Saint?
Yeah, using Cascade Point is just nutty. It's just, it puts the RPM at like 230, and I don't know if I'm gonna say, I'm not going to be crafting enhanced Cascade Point on this thing, but it is fun to use, and it is a bit difficult to control, like Impetus has mentioned. One thing I'll say about that is that going from like regular Cascade Point to enhanced Cascade Point is like a quarter of a second, and maybe this is like to keep things in line for the Crucible, that they don't extend it too much, but if that went up by like, a half second, or even to a full second to just really go nuts, then I think that could be something fun, because then you can take advantage of that whole Overflow Cascade Point combo and just go nuts. But otherwise, yeah, I'm probably going, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to use Collective Action on this one, though it is a very appealing perk. Definitely going with Threat Detector or Autoloading. Threat Detector does offer that really nice stability boost, as well as a handling and reload, but Autoloading holster, how can you ignore? down to like takes that one loses like a quarter second, going down to like 2.25 on the auto reload. Yeah, maybe collective action, maybe surrounded, depending on the kind of scenario I'm in. But also at that point, I could probably use conditional finality or Acreus. So that's going to be a tough sell at the moment for my shotgun slot. But, there's some potential. If you want to get up in the mix and just have a gun jump out of your hands, just throw in Cascade Point. Have a good time. All right?
Just had to bring up conditional finality. That's so unfair.
I was just about to say
it's in the same slot.
I've got this vision.
Oh my gosh.
I've got this vision of Saint dual-wielding conditional finality in his left hand and Legend of Acreus in his right hand. Just these massive shotguns. It's just the typical Titan vibe.
It's definitely the reason I played Salvador back in Borderlands era. Okay, you course read me like a book over here. It's true.
Are you one of those guys when the LFG shows up with their legendary shotgun in the kinetic slot, you ask them where conditional finality is and then just boot them if they say, like, are you that toxic? Because I'm worried for you. I feel like you're going down a road that's going to be very antithetical to what we try to, strive for here on the show, Saint. I mean,
most of my LFGs
are
are like, must own a dog over 100 pounds, must drive a Ford pickup truck, all that stuff. But, maybe I should start throwing conditional finality in those requirements too,
Oh, gosh. All right. I don't know if you want to cut that out. All right. I will talk about our final weapon here. This is Thin Precipice is the name. This is a strand vortex frame sword, our first strand sword in vortex. We don't get a lot of vortex frames. So this is, of course, if you aren't familiar with vortex, I got 3 words for you. Spin to win. That means the heavy attack has a spin. It's very fun to just absolutely waste a bunch of enemies that are running towards you with a very cool animation here. Probably the most famous vortex frame sword that we have would be Falling Guillotine. There's also Hero of Ages from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon, so we'll consider those our archetype peers to compare to. At base, we have quite a few stats on swords, but the guard resistance, guard efficiency, and guard endurance at base are all 0, so the only stats we're looking at are swing speed and charge rate, and ammo capacity as the other stats all get modified by the blade and guard. So for Thin Precipice, charge rate is 20. That is tied for the lowest with Falling Guillotine. Hero of Ages has 25, and then ammo capacity is 29. That is really, really low. Both Falling Guillotine and Hero of Ages have 46, so not a stat monster, but the perks here, especially in column 4, more than make up for that. So now, swords still are pretty straightforward when it comes to columns 1 and 2 here. We've got Jagged Edge, that boosts up our impact, and we got Swordmaster's Guard, gives us kind of well-rounded stat bumps to resistance, efficiency, and endurance. So that's what we recommend here. Pretty much all you need. It feels like one of those things that maybe should get tweaked a little bit so there's a bit more options, but yeah, for right now, Jagged Edge, Swordmaster's Guard, that's it. That's all that matters. We've only got the one masterwork, it's impact. So moving on to column 3 here, we've got Flash Counter, Relentless Strikes, and Unrelenting. Unrelenting is a great option, especially in column 3 for that Vortex frame sword, because again, that spin attack, you're really likely, if you play it well, to catch 2 or more enemies and immediately wipe them. So you can proc Unrelenting quite well, be really aggressive with that there. Column 4, this is where things just get absolutely insane. We've got Counterattack, Adrenaline Junkie, Golden Tricorn, Collective Action, Chain Reaction, and Hatchling. Wow, all right, so I mentioned Counterattack and Flash Counter. There's a really fun synergy here. We don't see this wombo combo show up a whole lot on swords, which is why I wanted to bring it to your attention. So I'll start in column 3 with Flash Counter. That's any melee that you block immediately after guarding, it disorients and weakens the attacker. Counterattack, that's our column 4 perk. Blocking after an attack immediately after guarding increases damage for a short duration. That's a 50% increased damage for 2 seconds. So that combo together, you disorient, weaken the attacker after they make a melee attack. If you're blocking, you then proc counterattack, so you now also get to deal extra damage against them by a lot. That is a very fun burst damage combo on swords. We just recently had a buff to Stronghold, the Titan exotic related to swords, so that's where I kind of make use of this combo personally for existing swords that I have. I do it on my Titan with Stronghold exotic equipped for some sweet damage up close and personal here. But of course, a ton of different options here. You don't have to go down that route. Unrelenting, I think, would probably be, the nice one if you're going to be up and close with a lot of high health targets. Unrelenting just makes sense, but you do also have Relentless Strikes. That is your reload perk, if you want to call it that. It's generating ammo. You need 1 ammo after scoring 3 powered hits within about 2 seconds of each. So it's probably what some other folks will want if you want to work on getting ammo back. As for a damage perk, I mean, goodness, just pick whatever you want. Really, there's a lot of fun options. There's a lot of just strong options. Golden Tricorn, this is the first time I've ever seen that on a sword. So again, if you want another perk that gives you an up to 50% damage buff, Golden Tricorn's there for the first time. Collective Action seems pretty easy to proc if you're going to be on Strand. Chain Reaction, I mean, who doesn't love killing an enemy and having them explode? That'll be really, really great. Also easy to proc Unrelenting with that. Hatchling, I mean, you don't have to get precision kills, you just got to kill an enemy. So it would be rapid kills in this case. There is that stipulation here. Rapidly defeating targets with non-precision weapons will spawn a Threadling. So, Warlocks, we have a lot of options with Threadlings. That's definitely a fun thing there. You want to run into a group of enemies, do a big spin attack, get a little Threadling to spawn, immediately hop on your shoulder, go run off to another group of enemies to go attack them, rinse and repeat. That's definitely a fun play style there. I don't know what I'm going to pick, actually. I have this crafted, but it's only level 1 right now, so I'm still debating what I'm going to end up putting on this sword. Court, anything that's catching your eye on Thin Precipice?
Well, I was actually going to ask both of you two, do you know if Golden Tricorn procs, the second stack, does it proc when it's not equipped? So if your sword's in the background. I can't remember if it does, and it doesn't say on any of these descriptors that it can work behind, like Frenzy.
I believe you need to have the weapon on.
Right. So I think as the hunter, the Strand Hunter, grapple melee guy, I think this might be a bit of a trap perk, because you cannot do a grapple melee when you've got a glaive or a sword out as you're swinging around. It just doesn't work. The sword takes priority. So you're really limited down to using your powered melee, which is pretty powerful for hunters. It did get the big buff, and I'm very happy with it just now. As for the grenades, it's the same problem as stasis when it comes to Golden Tricorn, is that the grenades they're not really damage grenades. They like Threadlings, they act a little bit weird if you do the whole consume thing. Those then don't count as a grenade, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. The suspend grenade doesn't really, you can do damage with it. It's like 1 damage, but it's still damage, but it's not going to proc you this. So this is where I was kind of sat back thinking, well, Impetus was sort of rounding off the perks here. I was thinking Golden Tricorn's maybe not the play here. It's first time on the sword, and there could be a little bit of utility, but you're so limited down to your abilities here. And for hunters, it's only really the paired melee, which it's very decent. But for me, I would probably then look at Collective Action as a damage perk. Again, Strand has a fairly easy job of you just create a Strand Tangle. Yeah, you do have that 15 second cooldown, but it's pretty much almost guaranteed. You can just destroy a Strand Tangle. Throw a Strand Tangle and you get the damage buff. Just make sure you've got the sword on at the time. Chain Reaction's nice here. Haven't played around with Hatchling though. I'm currently ranking it up. I think this was out of the 3 weapons that I was mostly interested here. Rapacious, Different Times, and Thin Precipice here. This was the most the one that I was wanting to rank up ASAP, and it was sadly the one that I unlocked last very recently, so I'm still in the process of ranking up. But Hatchling might be interesting to play around with on a sword. Very easy to proc. But yeah, interesting. I want to see how the Golden Tricorn works. Do some combinations and testing. See how that fares. But I'm not very hopeful. Saint, what's anything here that's catching your eye?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is going back to like all the way back to episode 1, I think. But Hero of Ages is still one of my favorite weapons in D2. Not because of its strength necessarily, although it does have a really fun combo, but just because of the style, the way that you hold the weapon, like Crown Splitter, and the trait combo, which is also found on Thin Precipice of Unrelenting and Chain Reaction. I like Unrelenting on this so much because of the way it allows you to be aggressive. It's, you know, for a context, Unrelenting is 80 or 85 HP if you are using the enhanced version of the perk, and that is a lot. You combo that with something like Chain Reaction, and you just you really easily or really quickly are getting a lot of kills that you can use to chain your health back, which allows you to stay really aggressive with the weapon. So if you don't have a sword with Unrelenting on it, I know that a lot of times the focus is like DPS, something like Relentless Strikes. But yeah, I would say go Unrelenting, go Chain Reaction, and just have some fun. Jump up in there, swing your sword, and watch things explode, and yourself gain health, despite the fact that you're right in the middle of a big group of enemies. Plus, you throw some Woven Mail on top of that. You're getting health regen. You have crazy amounts of DR. I mean, you're just going to be a tank. And if I don't know what there is that's more Titan than that. Okay, just jump in, swing sword, somehow get even stronger.
Profit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's about all I got. Yeah, Hero of Ages, great weapon, and I love to see that Unrelenting Chain Reaction roll on the Thin Precipice. Collective Action's cool, but yeah, sorry, you're not an explosion, so not for me, thanks.
Speaking of swords, here to point out that Chris Proctor did confirm on our kind of interview with him and Rodney a few episodes ago that they are reworking swords. We don't know the context. We don't know if that's kind of a small rework or if it's a kind of overhaul. Swords did fairly recently, not like last couple of seasons, but maybe a year and a half ago, they did get a soft rework with the guard endurance stats and all that. I don't think they've kind of filtered in as well as I think Bungie hoped. So maybe we'll see a kind of retweak of those stats. But yeah, swords are due for a kind of replacement into the DPS meta in a future season. Speaking of, you mentioned explosions of that. The actual flair, the vibe of these weapons are immaculate. They look amazing. The taken effects look great. You can use the ornaments for these if you've got them before. They are being sold for Bright Dust this season as well. The taken effect also applies to them. I think the original non-ornament versions look the best because it's got that sort of smoky, dark effect, which I really hope they continue that trend. I want to see more of these weapons that are they just go completely bonkers with the actual visual style. But yeah, some nice weapons with the taken ones. You guys got any final thoughts before we do some quick highlights?
Where's the Taken shader, my man?
Ooh, yeah. I would actually pay money for that.
Yeah.
To be honest, that I would pay a lot of money. I won't say how much, but if they put it in the store, I'd probably just pull out the credit card without checking. So, yeah. Kind of a weird spot, right? Like primaries didn't really blow me away, but the specials definitely have some applications, and the sword's cool. So, I'll take it. We also, this is kind of a weird one where 4 of these weapons are all in the kinetic slot due to being either strained or stasis, which is, we don't normally get that kind of a clumping, right? They typically spread them all out, but we've only got targeted in the energy slot and then Precipice in the heavy slot. So it's been kind of a pain to level them up, because I like to run through our seasonal activities with all these weapons out once I've crafted them, just to level them up for easy XP. But I've had to go one at a time for a few of these, and that's been a little frustrating. But that's a very small, ultimately a minor quip of mine. But yeah, some interesting stuff here. Unfortunately, we don't have too much interesting stuff to continue talking about, but we did want to touch on the Reckoning weapons, because those have come back. They are acquired through sonar engram focusing at the sonar station, and then also, of course, fishing. Depositing a bunch of fish will get you a chance to grab random rolls of these weapons. They are not craftable. Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to introduce this weapon set, because I would probably be a little too harsh, but you guys did want to touch on a few weapons that's kind of stood out to you, a few combos that you felt like were worth mentioning. So I will pass you over to, I think, Saint, you wanted to talk about spare rations?
Yeah, we'll start out here. I mean, this is a very famous or infamous weapon, depending on who you ask, and it is interesting to see it come back. These weapons have the disaster plan origin trait, picking up ammo, increases the weapon's flint resistance and range until you fire again. This hand cannon has kinetic trimmers on it in the fourth column, and it is super interesting to see that. But the problem with that is that it takes 6 shots to proc. And when, you got a base magazine of 13, there's some nice reload perks. You got there's subsistence, rapid hit, and slide shot in the third column, which are all great. And you can even pump that mag size up a little bit, but it's just too high of a requirement. I think that if you brought kinetic trimmers down to maybe 4, I would love to see 3, but I get that that's a little strong. Would definitely love to see that get a bit of a buff, because I feel like that can be pretty fun using something like rapid hit and kinetic trimmers. But yeah, 6 shots is just too much. It's just too big of an ask. And then you guys have any comments on spare rations before we jump over to bug out bag here?
Nope.
Yeah, I mean it's a 150 in a 140s world that's actually still a 150 stat wise, right?
Unfortunately.
Bug out bag, on the other hand, is not bad. It is an adaptive, so it's not a lightweight, but it is still a 900 RPM SMG, and that just means slightly different crit multiplier, which is not as bad as it used to be. And it does have some interesting things to offer. If you do not have a Callus mini tool, then you should definitely be on the lookout for this weapon. It's got some fair base stats. Adaptives usually have pretty strong base stats compared to lightweights. That has been seen as their advantage because of their varying crit multiplier. In the third column, you have you got threat detector and slide ways, not slide shots, so not as quite as strong there. But then also subsistence and perpetual motion. Threat detector definitely being a very strong option. And then in our fourth column, we have incandescent to kind of complete that Callus mini tool replacement there, and then also collective action, our new subclass verb focus perk. So if you do not have a good Callus mini tool, you haven't ever gotten one of those to drop, you don't have a good incandescent SMG, would definitely be on the lookout for a threat detector and incandescent roll on this guy. A lot of fun to use with your solar subclasses, and generally still pretty good primary weapon archetype despite all the shakeup. Those high rate of fire SMGs are still sitting just fine. Everything else for this set, shotgun, pulse rifle, sword, we just don't really have a lot to say. Sniper rifle, again, maybe there's some crucible application there, but biggest one of the set for me is going to be bug out bag, especially if you didn't have a Callus mini tool, and spare rations if they buff kinetic trimmer someday. But that's about all I got.
Yeah,
I guess I could go ahead, Court.
I was just going to talk about bug out bag just really briefly. I'm looking at the stats here between bug out bag and Callus mini tool. Just remember, Callus mini tool is technically its own frame, but it's a 900 RPM, and it takes the benefits of lightweight, so it gets that the lightweight bonus, and it gives you that increased mobility. Whereas Bug Out Bags it's an adaptive; it doesn't get anything really. You mentioned it has different crit multipliers, and it's got obviously different stats here. So I'm looking at the stats, and it's kind of like a mixture. It's 20 impact versus 15 Callus Mini Tool, 38 versus 30 for stability, handling 47 versus 65, reload speed 47 versus 31. So yeah, it's like up and down compared to Callus Mini Tool. But I don't think Callus Mini Tool's been sold. At least maybe it's been sold once since Season of the Haunted, and I would still probably go towards Callus Mini Tool, because I think it's got generally speaking, the 2XS origin trait isn't it's not the best origin trait, but it's something that works passively. If you're not using your super often, which maybe you should be, but if you're keeping it in the background, it does give you that bonus to strength and discipline, so you can build into that as well. But yeah, I tried to look at the sword, and it's just like, no, just craft Caretaker from last season. It's much better. You get, it's craftable as well. You can get enhanced perks, and it's just ultimately a better choice than the sword. It's quite a high from Thin Precipice, and then a very down in the dumps for this Reckoning Sword, which is just unfortunate. I don't have anything else to talk about when it comes to these Reckoning weapons. Impetus, you were going to mention something there.
Yeah, it's funny. Bug Out Bag kind of feels like it sits in between both Callus Mini Tool and also the new Solar SMG from the dungeon, No Survivors, because Bug Out Bag gets Incandescent, but it also gets Collective Action, and No Survivors gets Incandescent and Collective Action as well. It also gets Demo in Column 3, so it is ultimately a better option here. But again, if you don't have access to Callus Mini Tool, and you also don't have the Dungeon Pack, I think you could have a really good time with Bug Out Bag. I think we'd recommend Threat Detector in Column 3, but then if you wanted to get an Incandescent option or a Collective Action option, you'd have a really good Abilities 3.0 SMG, which is, the most important thing, of course, is just having a copy there that can take advantage of synergies. So, again, I would say in that specific case, Bug Out Bag, there's a use case for it. There's some desirability. Go focus it at the sonar station if you really want that. But again, if you already have access to Callus Mini Tool and you do have the Dungeon Pack, there's definitely better options, and we would push you towards either one of those, both, or one of the other, depending on which archetype you like. So yeah, that's the one nice thing I can say about the Reckoning weapons for PvE. There's definitely PvP rules for these, right? Like the pulse rifles definitely got some good perks as well. Spare rations maybe not so much, but some people are going to go craft a roll of that. But yeah, for PvE on the there's not a lot here that we can really say, hey, you should go grab this.
I think it's a very good point you mentioned about collective action, because I'm just looking at, Ember of Tempering is solar weapon kills grants you and your allies plus 10 recovery for 8 seconds, stacks up to 3. But the second point here is it also spawns a fire sprite. So it's very easy to get a fire sprite to then feed into your collective action. And yeah, I think I'm warming to Bug Out Bag, but ultimately I'm playing a lot of the dungeon. I have the dungeon. I'm going to be playing it, and I've got an incandescent Callus Mini Tool. So yeah, I think out of all these weapons, out of the Reckoning weapons anyway, the big highlight from the three of us would be, get Bug Out Bag if you don't have those other submachine guns, or if you're wanting a synergistic collective action, really easy 20% damage buff, pair it with Ember of Tempering or other things that spawn fire sprites.
All right.
And any other comments, guys?
No, I was going to say, there's your Reckoning weapon breakdown right there.
little 2-for-1 special.
Well, I will say
1.5.
If anyone's got any kind of ideas, recommendations for us, because we haven't really, we do this these weapon breakdowns every season. So it would be pretty surprising to see if there are any recommendations from the community for us. But like we looked at these and just not all that interested, with the exception of spare rations and bug out bag. But let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Please do. All right, folks. I think that wraps everything up for episode 66 of PvE. Thank you very much for listening. We do also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidaktos, for his work behind the scenes each and every week. We will be back next week with the Ghosts of the Deep dungeon breakdown. That's both the activity and the weapons from that dungeon. So stay tuned. Until then, my name is Impetus. You can find me by that name on Discord and in Destiny, and as Impetus always on Twitter. Court, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Discord as Court Projects. You can also find my infographics and spreadsheet over on the Destiny Massive Breakdowns website, along with other community applications and spreadsheets to enhance your Destiny experience. Saint, where can we find you?
Yep, my name is Saint Kabr. You can find me by Saint_Kabr on Twitter and Discord, hanging out in game. And be sure to follow at Massive Breakdowns on Twitter as well for updates on new episodes, the shows, and all kinds of stuff like that. Thanks for listening.